Good evening, race fans, and welcome out to the Attrition Sim Race Campus Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. Here at the halfway point through the season, kicking off round number 6 at the Indianapolis Raceway Park for the first time here in league history. 13 seasons, and we've still never managed to go to this track before. Qualifying still underway, and in the background there you can see Garrett Streets working to put his final qualifying times in the book here. Right now he is sitting in 5th right now over on qualifying. We come out here to Indianapolis for the first time here in the league. Never been to IRP, never been to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway either. But tonight we're here. The short track opened up back in 1960. This 0.68 mile or 1.1 kilometer speedway is known primarily for its drag racing. Right out back behind the track, there is a 4,400 foot long drag strip that hosts pretty much all of the major drag racing in North America from time to time. And that's pretty much what this venue is known for. But along with that, here on the Oval, they host a lot of sprint car racing and midget racing, but they also nowadays took a bit of a hiatus from it, but they're coming back starting with last year, hosting the NASCAR trucks, and along with that, they also host the ARCA Menard Series and the IndyCar Feeder Series, USF 2000 and Indy Pro 2000. Both come out here to this track. Track temperature 92 degrees Fahrenheit here, and with it being a completely flat track here, this race is going to prove itself very difficult for some of these drivers. That said, speaking of these drivers in question, they are making their way on down to the starting grid right about now. So how about we take a look down there and see how things shake up to kick off the halfway point of the season. Starting out on the pole here in the number 93, that's going to be Mr. Jason Gardner, league administrator here. And I'll tell you what, that's going to be a driver to keep an eye on. One of the slowest cars in practice, but I talked to him just a little bit in the paddock before we came down here to get the race kicked off. And he said that he has some tricks up his sleeve here for tonight's race. And of course, I'm not going to spoil him right yet, because we do sometimes have drivers that tune in to the radio broadcast. But Mr. Jason Gardner might just have what it takes to take home the win here if what all he has cooked up works out in his favor, though. Starting out to the outside, though, in the number 44 Mountain Dew Code Red entry, the driver out of Iowa, that's going to be Mr. Mike Young. Starting in back in position number 3 for, I believe, their best ever qualifying run here in ASRC, that's going to be the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan. Starting back in position number 4 in the number 66 entry, in the Turtle Juice entry, that's going to be rookie driver Matt Sisler making his first ever start here in ASRC. Said he came in from Team Goon Squad. Of course, Team Goon Squad unfortunately has not been out here in the league for a little while, but still on good terms with that organization, and he is going to be coming out here to try and test his mettle against all of these veteran drivers here in the ASRC Oval Series. Starting back in position number 5, that is going to be the 15 machine, one of the SM Racing Products drivers. That's going to be Garrett Streets, starting off position number 5. 6th place going to go back to the 85 of Mr. Brian Sabelski in the Neheim Tiger entry, followed by the unsponsored 78, continuing his curse of always starting in 7th. Finally, rounding out the field, the driver out of Mechanicsville, Maryland, and the current championship points leader. That's the 00 of Garrett Hess, who managed to wreck out of both of his qualifying laps, so he's going to have to start at the tail end of the field here. iRacing.com pace car is off. We're going to be trying things out for the first time here in Indianapolis. Green flag up in the air. Side by side down into turn 1 and 2. Gardner is immediately going to put on the parachute and let Mike Young sail on by here. Corey Logan just behind, trying to make the little bit lower line work here on that number 93 of Jason Gardner. Still in the early goings of this one, Garrett Streets almost looked like he was going all the way down to the bottom there in that number 15 machine. That was a little bit of a shocker to see, because typically here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, you basically want to be riding against the wall the entire time. It is not very often that we see the low line work here at IRP, but sure enough, Brian Sabelski in particular in that Neon Tiger number 85 is trying to make the bottom of the track work. Right now, sinking like a brick a little bit here, losing the position to Corey Logan. Garrett Streets on the outside, pulling alongside him, but not quite able to make the pass stick, falling back down the back straightaway. Now Streets is going to try the low line and see if he can't make that work for him, but not quite able to down there either. Garrett Hess already up +2 just behind in that Winter Rider entry. Able to turn some pretty fast laps in practice, but was just a little bit off the fastest car, which was that 44 of Mike Young, setting a 21.932 as his fastest lap in practice. Of course, all these drivers still on cold tires here. Right now, the fastest laps that these drivers have turned are almost a full second off the pace of some of the lap times that we started to see get turned in practice. So going to take a little bit of time here to get these tires warmed up as we go side by side here between the two Garretts, Hess and Streets, neck and neck here. Streets falling back just a little bit with the 00 of Garrett Hess. And sure enough, Hess is going to make the pass work, and now we see Matt Sisler side by side with that number 15 machine. Rookie driver here in the Turtle Juice 66, trying to make a move work down on the very bottom of the speedway. And again, here at IRP, historically on the iRacing.com platform at least, the bottom of the track just doesn't really work for these drivers, but definitely interesting to see them try and make the run work down there. And of course, like we've been mentioning at the beginning of this season, iRacing came out with that oval service dynamic refresh to try and make alternative lines more viable and more realistic to run. And so far this season, we have seen that system come into action a little bit and make side-by-side racing possible at tracks where traditionally it really hasn't been. Speaking of side-by-side racing though, Ryan Sabelski down on the bottom of the track manages to get the pass on the number 93 of Jason Gardner side-by-side just behind for Corey Logan and Garrett Hess. Logan down on the bottom, Hess up on the high line, way up against the wall. Logan trying to make it stick down on the bottom. He's going to fall back just a little bit. Now clear for that 00 of Garrett Hess, up +4 positions already. Going into tonight's event, Garrett Hess is the championship points leader by a pretty substantial margin. Call it about 80 points over Brian Sabelski right now in the championship standings. Of course, we will have drop weeks coming into effect in the latter half of this season. Once we get into the final closing couple of races, the points are going to be shuffled around a little bit as each driver's worst 3 races get eliminated from their points totals. As Corey Logan goes up hard into the outside wall there in that 24 machine, keeps it pointed in the right direction, but that's going to allow Streets and Sisler to catch up without too much difficulty. Murphy back there at the tail end of the field, hanging on to this battle as well, just behind that rookie driver of Matt Sisler. Driver out of Oakland, making his debut start here in the league, and so far not having too bad of a go of it. He is able to duke it out with some of these long-standing drivers here in the league. So far, so good. 8 drivers making the call of the field is the lowest driver count we've had so far this season, but Indianapolis Raceway Park, love it to bits. It's a wonderful track, but it is a little bit controversial here on the iRacing.com platform. These weird, kind of difficult tracks tend to be. You either love this speedway or you hate it, and I'll tell you from a driving perspective, I hate this track. I suck at this track. I cannot turn a clean lap at this track to save my life. So it's miraculous the things that these these ASRC Oval Series drivers are managing to do here in these Arca Menards Chevrolets. Side by side for the race lead though, Brian Sabelski from all the way back in 6th has caught up to our race leader and is trying to make the pass, but no, caution flag is out on the speedway. Garrett Streets and Corey Logan both around on the backstretch. It is not going to score Ryan Sabelski as the leader for that pass. I think we're going to have Mike Young stacked back up at the front of things. As I said, let's take a moment to look back, see what all just went down to bring out this caution here. Side by side for Garrett Streets and Corey Logan. Streets down the low side And that 66, that rookie driver of Matt Sisler's also down here. And Sisler's actually currently down on pit lane, so Sisler might have been involved in this incident as well. Side by side for Streets and Logan. Oh, Streets is upside down. That is never a good thing to see, race fans. Miraculously keeping it pointed not in the right direction, but he's still on the track because there seems to be a distinct lack of catch fence on the back straightaway, which I don't believe is actually correct. I think that is just a graphical error here, because I do believe that there is a catch fence on the backstretch that should stop cars from just casually rolling over that little piece of cement. But regardless, scary incident for our first yellow flag of the evening. Taking another look down here, side by side for Garrett Streets and Corey Logan. And honestly, you can't really assign blame to anyone there. Just wrong place, wrong time for both of these drivers. Streets lands the wheel side up, so at least he doesn't have to take the tow down to pit lane. He's got that going for him. Take a moment, let's ride on board with the driver with the number 15 machine heading down through turns 1 and 2. And just bang. Right into the outside wall. So both Corey Logan and Garrett Street still down here on pit lane. Lights are still on the iRacing.com pace car, so we are going to be going at least another lap under caution before we get things rolling here yet again. And sure enough, Mike Young still is going to be scored as the race leader at the time of that caution flag coming out. Not quite able to get cleared by Sabelski. And there we go. Lights out on the iRacing.com pace car. So we're going to try this thing once again. It's going to be Mike Young and Brian Sabelski, your front row. Then it's going to be Garrett Hess, Jason Gardner, row number 2. Murphy and Sisler for row 3. Corey Logan also back out on the speedway. And on the lead lap at that. Garrett Streets, however, still stuck down in pit lane for the time being. Let's try this thing again, though. 18 laps in the books here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park as we cross the line to go green flag racing once again. And Brian Flagman is waiting a long time to throw that green flag. There we go. Green flag back up in the air here at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Side by side down into 1 and 2. Mike Young is not pulling away like we've seen him do before in some of these restarts in these past couple of weeks. We've generally seen the front row just completely sail away from the rest of the field, but right now neck and neck between Sabelski and Young, and Sabelski's going to clear him. Sabelski, our new race leader at the line, up +5 positions from where he qualified right now. Now the question is how is he going to hang on to it? He's got a couple of very fast drivers right behind him, Mike Young, Garrett Hess, both drivers that have led plenty of laps here in this league. Of course, Garrett Hess has 3 wins to his name so far in season number 13. That Winter Rider 00 up +5 from where he qualified right now. So far, Matt Sisler back here in this 66 is the only driver who was not involved in that incident, who has come down pit lane. Spent about only 5 seconds down in his pit stall, so he did not put tires on that 66 machine, just fuel for the Turtle Juice number 66. Currently running back in the 5th position. Derek Murphy hot on his heels, as it's still a really close battle here up here at the front. Sabelski, Young, and Hess, your top 3, and all 3 of them are starting to pull away from the field here just a bit. Sabelski still running in the middle. Young and Hess both trying to go up higher on the high line. We might have trouble here. Jason Gardner up into the outside wall. He's still got it pointed in the right direction, but definitely a bit of scraping coming out of turn number 2. He has lost the position to Murphy and has fallen back just a little bit, all the way back here into 6th. I'm curious to see if this driver is still going to stick to the strategy that he was telling me about down in the paddock before the start of today's race, or maybe he's starting to think of a little bit of a plan B here. Currently about a second off not off the pace, but behind the rest of the field, which doesn't sound like a lot, but mind you, these drivers are only setting 22-second lap times right now. Side by side for second between Young and Hess, and Matt Sisler starting to get involved in this battle as well. He is just behind, and we're starting to see that 44 lose it. He's going to go around. Caution flag out on the speedway for Mike Young. Fortunately, no other cars involved in that spin, able to bring it to a stop and almost able to hang on to it, but just not quite for the driver of that number 44 machine. 26 laps in the book at the time of caution. Still got a long way left to go here in tonight's event. One of only two real proper short tracks here. In a couple of weeks coming up, we are going to be heading to Bristol Motor Speedway, and I'll tell you what, that is going to be a heck of a race. It is the fastest half mile in the world for a reason, and these ARCA cars are going to put that statement to the test. I believe that is, I want to say, in 3 weeks for now. Take a look down at the schedule, make that for sure. Sure enough, three more races before Bristol. Of course, after this one, heading to Michigan for one of our full-length races. 200 miles at Michigan next week. Then it's going to be heading over to the Milwaukee Mile for 100 laps. And then we're going to go road course racing at Watkins Glen before we head to Bristol on February 26th. Mike Young going to make his stop 14 seconds down there on pit lane. Let's take a moment to look back at that incident once again here. Side by side between Mike Young and Garrett Hess. Both drivers really duking it out hard here. Coming out of turn number 2, going into 3. Mike Young scrapes against the wall, and that was all it take to just start to upset the balance of the car. He locks down the brakes. Fortunately, no one else gets involved here. Let's take a moment to ride on board with this driver, see what he saw going into this incident. All it took was that one little scrape against the wall, and it just completely upset the balance of the car. And when you're driving on the razor's edge like that, sometimes that's all it takes. Taking a look here, riding on with the helmet cam as we go into this incident. You can see him, he's trying to save it. He tries to say it, and just not quite able to make it happen. Very close call with Derek Murphy there. Corey Logan also electing to make the call come down pit lane. That 24 machine is beat up, particularly on the right side here. That outside wall is brutal. Of course, some of that damage also picked up with the incident that brought out our first caution with Garrett Streets. Corey Logan looks like decent amount of damage on that 24. Might have to get repaired here. Lights still on the iRacing.com pace car, and it's starting to get about overcast over the speedway. Of course, no risk of rain, fortunately. iRacing has not gotten around to adding rain quite yet here in 2024, nor have they in the past 5 or so years they've been talking about it, but we're getting there. It's coming soon, trademark, but no risk of rain here at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. But there is a chance that this weather will cool the speedway down a little bit, maybe be a little bit gentler on these drivers' tires, because I'd imagine a lot of our top 5 has really been pushing here so far in these first 30 laps. It's going to be Sabelski and Hess coming to the green here as your front row. Then it's going to be Sisler and Murphy for row number 2. Gardner and Young back for row 3. Let's try this thing again here. iRacing.com pace car has retreated to the safety of pit lane. 30 laps is the distance we have completed so far at IRP. Green flag back up in the air, and 2 new drivers take to the front of the field. Sabelski and Hess. Sabelski getting a much better start than that 00 machine on the outside line. Not quite keeping pace with Sabelski the same way that we saw Young do it earlier on that last restart. Sisler getting a pretty solid run there in that 66 machine, though. He's keeping up with our front runners here. As we cross the line, let's see how it shakes up. Sisler was actually faster than Hess last time by around the speedway. He tries to duck it down low. He's looking like he might try to make a pass on that 00 entry here in just a moment. Got to get a little bit closer to make it happen, as we are side by side just behind Mike Young making some moves, getting around that 78 of Derek Murphy. Young wants to get back up to the front of this thing as fast as he possibly can. Nothing else, trying to take home the bonus points for laps led here. It is an 80-point deficit between Garrett Hess and Brian Sabelski right now, but then it's only 14 points between Sabelski and Young for position number 2 in the championship standings right now. Then Jay DeVries and Garrett Streets, both only one singular point behind Mike Young, both tied for the 4th position. Unfortunately, Jay DeVries not able to come out here this evening. But we do have Garrett Streets out here on the speedway being scored back in the 8th position, 4 laps down currently, but he is out here on the track, so that will, at the very least, bump him up above Jay DeVries in the championship standings coming out of tonight's event. Closest battle on the speedway is the battle for the lead here. Garrett Hess is back in it, maybe not having the restart he wanted coming to the green there, but he is now keeping pace with that number 85 machine and starting to put the pressure down here. Call it about 0.2 of a second between these two leading drivers. Still only 35 laps completed around this 0.68 mile speedway. There's still plenty of time left to go for those of you who prefer the metric system, though. 1.1 kilometers in length. Let's just round that down, call it a kilometer. We've got, you know, roughly, what, 63 kilometers left to go. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on this stream. See, look at that. I started talking about the metric system. Garrett Hess immediately goes up into the outside wall. I've got to stop. I am cursing these drivers by talking about not freedom units on the ASRC broadcast. We're going fast. We're turning left. That is what's important here. Kind of curious to see just how fast these drivers are actually going, though. How about we take a look down at the at the dashboard for one of these drivers. Garrett Hess coming out of turn number 4. Reaching about 130 down the backstretch before having to get on the parachutes. Of course, no shifting required here in these ARCA Menards cars, aside on the restarts when you got to get the car up to speed. Otherwise, that's generally the trend, especially in some of these more larger speedway-oriented cars. Once you get up to speed, you keep it in gear, and you do not touch that gear shifter until the caution flag comes out. Matt Sisler also getting involved in this battle once again. He has caught up to our 2 race leaders, and last time by, pretty much setting the same lap times as they were. Let's see how it is once we cross the line this time by. This time around, only 0.03 of a second between these 3 drivers, but Garrett Hess was the fastest of the bunch by a thousandth. 22.56 for Garrett Hess. 5.7 for Sabelski, and 5.9 for Sisler. These 3 drivers have pulled away from the rest of the field, though. Mike Young all the way back 1.7 seconds behind. Derek Murphy another second behind himself, battling it out with Jason Gardner back for the final position in the top 5 here. Gardner able to get the pass on Murphy back there, though. As we still continue to duke it out for the race lead, Murphy is falling back quite quickly here from that ASRC number 93. They were side by side just a lap ago. Now it's already up to 0.6 of a second. Now call it about 0.7 of a second as Hess continues to put the pressure down on our race leader. Hess has not yet led a lap here this evening. And of course, he may have an 80-point lead over Sabelski, but every bonus point counts, especially when these drop weeks start to get factored in as they make contact. Contact for our race leaders, but Hess manages to make the pass happen. Sisler's going to send it down low. He's going to try to make the pass as well, but it is not going to stick for that 66 machine. He is going to fall back here, coming out of 3 and 4. Sabelski going to try the crossover. He sent it down low now as we just heard a car's engine expire. That's Garrett Streets off the pace. It looks like he's going to be able to nurse it down to pit lane here, but sure enough, that 15 machine's engine just expired. He is out of this race now. That is terminal damage. They cannot get that fixed. That's it. Garrett Streets is going to be finishing back in position number 8 here. 39 laps to his name. That is the... Oh, trouble. We're going to wreck for the race lead. Oh, boy. Matt Sisler, our new race leader. Caution flag is not going to come out. Everyone kept their cars at speed and pointed in the right direction. Rookie driver Matt Sisler takes the lead after contact between Sabelski and Hess. That was scary to see. Everyone keeping their cars pointed in the right direction. But let's see if we can't take a real quick look back here and see what just happened here. If we can't get a better look at things. Let's jump it back to about here. Side by side for Sabelski and for Hess for the race lead. Coming out of turn 3 and 4, everything's looking a-okay so far. Sabelski comes up, tries to take the high line away from Hess, but it just doesn't work. Both drivers looking to be in okay racing condition. They're all still pointed in the right direction. Garrett Hess has lost the position to Mike Young, so Garrett Hess has lost the position to Mike Young, so he is now down a spot outside of the podium. And Matt Sisler is sailing away with the lead. Rookie driver making his debut race here in the ASRC Oval Series. Debut race with the league as a whole. He has not competed in any of ASRC series before. And maybe the pressure's getting to him a little bit here in that Turtle Juice entry as he scrapes against the outside wall. He has the lead, but he also has Brian Sabelski bearing down behind him. Last time by, Sabelski was faster than him. And sure enough, you can see Sabelski starting to close that gap down from 0.8 of a second. Now we've got it down to 5. He's trying his best to hang on here, but Sabelski is still in prime racing condition in that number 85 machine despite the incident. Halfway in tonight's event, though, as we cross the line, Mike Young, Garrett Hess both have fallen back away from our race leaders here as Sabelski rapidly closes the distance on that rookie driver. A lap car up ahead as well. That is the CZ Robotics 24 of Corey Logan just ahead here. Corey Logan trying to keep it down low out of the way of our race leaders. That 24 is pretty banged up, but at nothing else, Logan has the confidence of knowing that they will finish better than Garrett Streets no matter what. They are not going to get that engine repaired in the remaining time we have here in tonight's event. Sabelski and Sisler still your two front runners here. Just behind Garrett Hess, hot on the heels of the 44 of Mike Young. 4 drivers now officially having led laps here in tonight's event, and all of them are raring to get back up to the front. If nothing else, I'd imagine none of these 3 drivers running 2nd through 4th want to be shown up by a rookie driver in his debut race. It's not even like it's just his first season here. It is his debut race, and he is leading laps over the rest of the field here. Zooming out just a little bit, you can see the deficit between Young and Hess have, over Sisler and Sabelski, and the battle between Sisler and Sabelski is heating up here. Sabelski is going to try and make the pass for the lead down on the bottom again. For everything I said about the bottom not working here at Indianapolis Raceway Park, Sabelski has proven me wrong time and time again. He's going to clear Sisler for the race lead coming out of turns 3 and 4. Will we see Sisler go for the crossover? No, he will not. He's going to keep it up to the outside wall. Try and keep running that preferred line, but he's going to arc it down coming through too. Not sticking to the outside wall all the way through the corner, just going up there on corner entry, then kind of cutting down across the track. As Sabelski gets into the outside wall, he's going to lose ground on Sisler, and he has damage to the right front now. No way to know for sure if he actually has steering damage or if it's just cosmetic damage to the bumper on that number 85 machine, but there is definitely a bit of caved in bodywork on the right front of that number 85, and just like that, his job gets even harder, particularly because Young and Hess have closed the gap. Now all less than a second for the race lead here. Sisler trying to make the low line work here, not quite able to make it happen. Young and Hess basically taking an identical line together. I think the two of them are just trying to work together to get back up to our race leaders here. Sisler still trying to make the low line work. See if he can't use Sabelski's own technique against him. Murphy and Gardner also still duking it out. They're both about 7 seconds back from this battle for the race lead. 60 laps in the books here at IRP. Going to be 40 to go as we cross the line. And the clock is ticking for these drivers. Again, only setting 22-second laps. These remaining 40 are going to go away a lot faster than these drivers plan on. Almost a little bit of contact there between Young and Sisler right on the rear bumper of that 66 machine, but Young is going to let off the gas, fall back just a little bit, maybe be able to make the move work on the high side, because I respect what Sisler's doing here, but I don't know if the low line is working. And sure enough, Sisler tries the high line, scrapes against the outside wall. Young's going to try and pull it down low and make the move happen, but not quite able to here. All while these three duke it out, Sabelski is quietly laughing to himself as he gets a little bit of an opportunity to pull back away here, even with that damage to the right front. Getting a little bit of breathing room with every overtake attempt these three drivers for second on fourth try to make on each other. And I'll tell you, especially seeing it back here with Garrett Hess and Mike Young. Hess wants that spot. He wants to get at least back up on the podium here. And he's got to figure out a way to get around that Mountain Dew Code Red entry if he wants to do it. Nearly up into the outside wall for Hess there. I was pretty sure he actually was going to hit it, but he manages to keep it off the wall just barely. Pretty much could just put a sheet of paper between that 00 and the outside wall through 1 and 2, as there's almost a little bit of contact there between Young and Sisler again. Young is ready to make the move on this rookie driver. He's just got to figure out the opportunity to do it, and that might just be it right there. Side by side for second. Young down on the bottom, Sisler up high. Not quite able to clear him, but he's going to try it again down in 3 and 4. He doesn't have much of a choice now. Garrett Hess has filled the gap that he was once in, so one way or another, he's got to try it, and he's going to fall back. Garrett Hess finds his way back out into the podium as Young's attempt to overtake on the bottom completely backfires on him. 66 laps is the distance, going to be 2/3 of the way through this event. Next time across the line, Sabelski is pulled away to about a call it about 3/4 of a second of a gap between Sabelski and the rest of the field as these three drivers continue to duke it out for the remaining spots on the podium. They are all doing Sabelski a favor right now. Of course, mind you, there's also the question of pit stops here. Sabelski has not pitted, Hess has not pitted, Sisler and Young have. Of course, Young presumably pitted. I think it actually was a scheduled pit stop for Young, because it's looking like a standard pit stop time, only 14 seconds, so Young might actually be on new tires here. Sisler is not, from the looks of things. Sisler just took fuel under his stop. But evidently, tires might not be making that much of a difference, considering Garrett Hess is able to stay up in front of that 44. Both of them able to get around the rookie driver of Matt Sisler, though. He's going to fall back to 4th. He is still involved in this battle for sure. But now they're all in clean air. I'm curious to see how the lap times are going to shake up as they cross the line next time by. And as it stands, Mike Young is the fastest of our 4 leading drivers. 22.88, 22.9 for Hess, 23.1 for Sabelski, and 23.46 for Sisler. Sisler has fallen off the pace. He is not involved in this battle for the lead anymore. Further back at the tail end of the field, would you believe it, Gardner and Murphy are still duking it out with each other back here, battling for the 5th position. They've been trading places back and forth for the last, call it about 40-50 laps. Gardner trying to make the pass on the high line on Murphy this time around, going down to 3 and 4, and he's going to be able to do it as Murphy falls back just a little bit. But I have the feeling that's not going to be the end of this story here, because these two have been going at it time and time again. Last time by, Gardner was faster than Murphy by 7/10 of a second. That's a little bit unheard of. I think Murphy might have scraped against the wall or had a little bit of trouble on that last lap, because 7/10 of a second is a crazy margin to beat someone by. Sure enough, as we crossed the line that time around, Murphy only about 4/1000ths of a second slower than Gardner. So that's a little bit more like where I was expecting these drivers to be in terms of their lap times. 22:39 for Gardner. Or no, excuse me, that's his best lap. 23:08 for Gardner, 23:13 for Murphy. Gardner pulling away just a little bit, but not enough to really be in the comfort zone here. And with only 75 laps in the books now, as we cross the line, I'm starting to be worried a little bit here that Gardner's grand strategy isn't quite playing out for him the way he was hoping it for it. And there's still a whole lot of what-ifs up in the air. Another caution here could completely turn the field strategies upside down on their heads, but I think that Sabelski and Hess have caught on to what the strategy is here that Gardner is also working on. Presumably also Murphy is working on. 25 laps left to go here around the IRP. Still 7 drivers on the track, and 6 of them still on the lead lap. Closest battle on the speedway. It's technically the battle here between Garrett Hess and Mike Young. 8/10 of a second, nearly 9/10 of a second between the two drivers here. If we collapse the tower here, you can see it a little bit better. Call it probably about, what, 6-7 car lengths between the two of them, and pretty much the same distance between Hess and Sabelski as well. Actually, a little bit more between Sabelski and Hess. Well, this is how your top 3 drivers are currently running. Let's take a moment. Let's go on board with Mr. Mike Young, as he was the fastest driver last time by, and see what a lap on board with these drivers looks like. Mike Young closing the gap here on Mr. Garrett Hess, forced the second position here. Unfortunately, while I do have all of my distance measurements prepared for our fans out there in Canada and the rest of the world abroad prepared, I don't know my conversions 4 miles per hour off the top of my head. But they're going fast, they're turning left. That's half the battle right there. I mean, they're reaching speeds that are high. I think we can all agree on that one. Particularly Mr. Mike Young, who is closing the gap on Garrett Hess, and last time by was about 0.2 of a second faster than Garrett Hess was, so we could see a pass here for second. I don't think either driver is going to be able to close the gap to the lead without a caution, unless Sabelski has something catastrophic happen to him. But Hess and Young, Hess has a bit of damage on the right side of that double zero as well, so he might have had a couple of scrapes against the wall the same way that we had Sabelski have them. And that looks to be hurting his lap times a little bit more than it is for Sabelski here. Young trying to go down low, down in 3 and 4. And it keeps looking like he's able to pull up just a little bit. He's going to go all the way down on the apron here to try and get some track position. It's not going to work for him. That apron is a little bit slippery here at IRP, and you saw him have to slow it down a little bit just to keep the car pointed in the right direction in that 44 machine. Of course, down through 1 and 2, he tries to go down low again, but that time he has the mind to keep it off the apron. Keeping it high through 3 and 4, and that is where he's suddenly making all the distance up on the 00 machine, so maybe the high line is the place to be right now with 15 laps to go. Here around the speedway, Garrett Hess up in the outside wall. This might be Mike Young's opportunity to make the pass here. No, it is not. Hess is still going to stay in front of Young despite that little kerfuffle into the outside wall, though. I'll tell you what. Hess is having to park it in the corner, though. I think that 00 has just shredded his tires off here. It is not looking like that car is behaving the way he wants it to be, particularly in center of the corner. That is where Young is making all of his time. He's just got to find a way to get around that 00 when he has these slow moments in the center of the corner. Both of them still losing ground to Sabelski, though. 2.2 seconds from the race leader to the rest of the field here. Young's going to pull it down low. Able to get side by side with Hess. Not able to clear him out of the corner. And Hess is going to have the run on the high line. But again, he's having to check up so hard to keep that car from understeering into the outside wall. Those tires are absolutely used up on the 00 machine. But he's keeping it on the preferred line, and that is making all of the difference here. Young just can't get around him, make that bottom line work, particularly not the way that we've seen Sabelski use it all throughout this race. Only a 1/10 of a second dividing these two drivers. All it takes is one little slip up. And Young should be able to make the pass on that 00 machine. He's going to pull it side by side again in turns 1 and 2. 11 laps left to go here around the speedway, so there's not a whole lot of time left to actually make this pass happen here. We have 4 drivers on the speedway, though, who have not yet pit. And if what the word we heard down in the paddock is correct for Mr. Jason Gardner, this will be a 0-stop race for these drivers. Side by side for the lead, and that's the first time we've seen the timing and scoring actually officially move Young ahead of Hess. Sure enough, Young's going to get ahead of Hess. Will he be able to clear him out of the corner? Both drivers getting loose out of 4. Mike Young's able to make the pass, and there's side by side further back in the field between Sisler and Gardner. Battling it out for 4th here. Sisler up on the high side in the Turtle Juice entry. Number 93 of Jason Gardner down on the bottom. He's going to make the pass work here. So that moves Gardner up to 4th. With 8 laps left to go, neither of these drivers are going to be able to catch up to Young or Hess. Again, unless a caution flag comes out, which is always possible. You never know what's going to happen until the race is already done and dusted. Gardner able to pull away from Sisler without too much difficulty. And Hess falling back from Mike Young as well here. Both of them coming up on that lap car. That's the 24CZ Robotics of Corey Logan pulling it down to the apron here. Coming into tonight's event, Corey being scored back into the 14th position, tied with Lucas Lyons, who is not present. Only 4 points back from Shane Wyatt and Derek Houston. Also, both drivers not here. Then it's going to be, call it about 18 points back from TJ Henson, who again, another driver that is not present here tonight. So even if currently stuck 2 laps down, this could bump Corey up a couple of positions in the championship standings coming out of tonight's event, and every point matters in the closing chapters of this season. Big high five up in the air from the flag stand, though. 5 laps left to go here at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. And despite what I said about Hess's tires potentially being shredded here, Hess is closing the gap on Mike Young. Last time by, Hess was a full 1/10 of a second faster than Young. Might be too little too late, though. With 4 laps left to go, I don't know if that's going to be enough time for Hess to make the move, especially since he scrapes against the outside wall in 1 and 2. That's going to kill any momentum he had built up there. Last time by, though, again, Hess was faster than Young. He's got the speed to potentially make something happen here, but I don't think 3 laps is going to be enough time to do it. They're still going to duke it out neck and neck, though. 0.3 of a second between these two drivers. And again, last time by, Hess was faster than Young. Only by a couple of thousandths, but the speed is there. Gonna be 2 to go as Sabelski crosses the line. Only, call it about 1.2 miles around the speedway, or 2.2 kilometers. If you want to get real technical with that one, I can do that one for y'all. That's getting loose off the corner as the white flag is going to fly for Brian Sabelski one more time around the Indianapolis Raceway Park before we crown ourselves a winner here for round 6 of season number 13. Sabelski is stealing the show here. He does not have a single thing to worry about, but the battle here for second, side by side for Young and Hess. Hess scrapes against the outside wall, trying to make the crossover move happen. It is not going to. Mike Young's going to bring it home second. Garrett Hess rounding out the podium here at IRP. So Brian Sabelski, 4-time champion here of the ASRC Oval Series. Been a bit of a rut the past couple of seasons, but he is going to bring home win number 2 and close the gap between himself and Garrett Hess. I could be insane here, but I could have swore that in his interview last week, Sabelski said he wouldn't be present tonight. But sure enough, he is going to come out, and he is going to take home the win in a pretty dominant fashion at that. Once he got up to the front of the field, there was just no one that could really contest with him. Of course, going to get the Polish victory lap from Mr. Brian Sabelski as he heads back around the speedway. Taking home win number 2 of the season. Of course, his previous win was back at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, just edging out over Mike Young. And I mean, once again, we find a Brian Sabelski, Mike Young 1-2 finish here. Alrighty, race fans, don't go anywhere. We will be back here in just a moment. Gonna pull our top 3 drivers up here into the broadcast booth here so we can get some words with your top 3 finishers here this evening at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Alrighty, race fans, welcome back to the Indianapolis Raceway Park. round number 6 in the books here for season 13 of the ASRC Oval Series presented by SM Racing Products. And Brian Sabelski, Mr. I'm part-time here this season, still manages to bring home win number 2 here this evening. How are you feeling, Brian?
Pretty good. I got wrecked out of my preseason race, so I looked at the time and was like, "Oh, I have time to make it." So I just decided to show up. I don't have notes for IRP in this car, so it's a combination of the setup notes I have for Stafford and the racing line from the trucks was what I had to use tonight.
I mean, sometimes luck just works out. Always a terrible feeling to get wrecked out of a race, but it turned into a win for a different series. So I guess you gotta weigh the pros and cons there. But in the
Yeah,
championship standings, I mean, it closes the gap between you and Hess by a pretty solid margin.
yeah. I mean, it was a good racing throughout. Had to kind of like go all the way up to the front and then fell back and then go all the way back up again. So it was not easy. It was good racing as expected.
Yeah, definitely a heck of a run. There was that little bit of a scare about halfway through the race. Fortunately, no real major damage from what I could tell on either driver's car. But when that happened, were there any doubts in your mind that you might not be able to get back up to the front?
Yes, I thought I might have had some serious right front damage with the way that I hit the wall, um, or like some serious radiator damage or something like that. Where it like kind of like screws everything up. And the car felt a little weird the first couple laps, and I was like, oh man, maybe I broke something. But then it kind of like clicked back in, and I was like, all right, let's go. Let's get back up to the front.
It definitely seemed to work out for you one way or another. And of course, you came into tonight's event saying you had basically no notes to work off of. Were you planning for this to be a zero stop race from the get go?
Probably. The only way I was going to stop was if there was a caution after lap 40, just because taking tires earlier wouldn't have done anything. And I was trying to, I didn't know. As it got closer to 100, I became more and more likely I wasn't going to stop because, you just, even if you're faster on tires, you can't march through the field here that quickly. Um, so, yeah, is what it is. Got out front and just kind of like stayed out front and slowly, bit by bit, pulled away and yeah, had a good run.
Sure enough, everything seemed to work out in your favor here this evening. Next week, heading for one of our full length races over at Michigan for 200 miles. I guess, first of all, do you think that's a race you'll be able to make? And if so, do you think that's a race you'll be able to win?
If I make it, two things have happened. One, I've been savagely wrecked out of Daytona, which is a possibility. It's Daytona. Um, Two, yeah, I think we were probably pretty close to winning it last season. Just had a really unfortunate timing on a mid-race caution that kind of threw me for a loop on strategy. I think we can win it. I think it's possible if we're there, but I don't know if I'll be there next week. I should be there on the 12th though, so at most you guys get a 1 week break from me. I'm back for a week.
Good deal. Well, I certainly wish no ill will on you, but you turned one
Yep.
wreck into a win. Maybe you can turn two into a win next week as well. For now,
We'll
though,
see.
the microphone's all yours, Mr. Sabelski. Who you want to thank for making everything happen?
Well, thank you all for hosting this race series, Jason and all them for hosting it when they do, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have made it if it was earlier. Of course, thanks to folks sponsoring me. Kearney Setup Shop, official setup shop of eNASCAR, SM Racing, both on my car and the sponsor of the series. And thanks Aiden for broadcasting this, and thanks everyone hanging out in my Twitch chat. Good to have y'all. And that's it for now. Maybe next time I show, maybe we'll have a couple more names on the car, but we'll see how that all shakes out.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Congratulations on the win here, Nick. You get what I mean. You won the race. I'm proud of you, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.
Yep. See you next time.
Finishing back in position number 2, I'll tell you what, Mr. Mike Young, you brought it home second the last time Sabelski won, and you do it here again tonight. How are you feeling here this evening?
Feeling pretty good. I didn't think that I would finish where I did after having that spin. So I'm very thankful and happy.
Fair enough. A couple of drivers here has even had a couple of sketchy moments, but they still managed to put things together in second place. Definitely a really solid run, especially when coming in tonight's event, only 14 points behind Sabelski in the championship standing. So you're getting up there.
Yeah, I didn't realize how close it was. So hopefully, with the coming weeks, it's going to be a very, very tight race for the championship.
Of course, the big question, as always, next week we're heading to Michigan for one of the full-length ARCA races, 200 miles around there. You think you got what it takes to take home a win there?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to think that they're going to be able to win. You just have, with what I found out, tires. If you save tires and save fuel, you're going to be in the top 5 for sure for the race. So and after that, it's anyone's game.
Fair enough. I mean, that seems like a pretty solid plan to me. Coming into tonight's event, especially in the later half of that race, what do you think you might have had to have done different to be taking home the checkered flag here tonight?
Be a little bit more consistent, not overdrive the car. I felt like there was times I was overdriving the car, which when you do that, you're going to heat the tires up and have less grip. So I think that was a big issue with me.
Yeah, definitely can be a bit of a struggle here on these flat tracks, but either way, still managing to bring home another podium finish to your name. For now, the microphone's all yours, Mr. Young. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen here?
Thank you for broadcasting. Like always, it's always really good to go back and watch it, see where you can learn and all that. I want to thank the league, the SRC, for putting this on. Without you guys, there'd be nothing, obviously. So I want to have a big thanks for that. I want to thank Jay for getting me involved with this league, too, but it's too bad that he didn't show up. And that's about it.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Congratulations on the podium here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you at Michigan next week.
Thank you.
And finishing back at the tail end of the field here, current championship leader and professional last to firster, except for the part at the very end, but that part doesn't count. Mr. Garrett Hess, how are you feeling here this evening?
It could have gone better, but I can't complain with the podium finish.
Yeah, I mean, when you started at the tail end of the field and I saw you wreck out those qualifying laps, I was a little bit concerned for you, but you still managed to put a heck of a race together here tonight. How did you feel coming into it after qualifying was done with?
I knew that I could at least put something together. I could put decent laps in practice, but I just kept overdriving the corners in turns 1 and 2. But I'm glad that I had some sort of speed in the race, but near the end, the tires kind of just fell off, and Mike was able to get past me, and I couldn't get past around him.
Yeah, sure enough. And I guess I gotta ask you the same thing I asked Sabelski earlier on when there was that contact halfway through the race. Approximately how screwed did you feel like you were?
I definitely felt like the right front was knocked in a little bit, but there wasn't a whole lot both of us could do. He was sliding up, and I stayed a little bit off the wall, and then net code. There was about a foot of net code between our cars that hooked him across me. I slammed the brakes to let him get straight, and that's what set me behind a couple other cars. So glad I got back into a podium position, but would have been nice if I could have had second or the win, but Brian drove his ass off.
Sure enough. I mean, it was a heck of a race for everyone involved. All 3 of the podium finishers tonight being involved in some sort of pretty scary incidents and still walking away with top 3 finishes is no laughing matter.
Yeah, I'm just glad that didn't bring out a caution. The last thing I wanted was to go down pit road for repairs and then have to burn a set of tires trying to get all the way back up front.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It worked out at least a little bit there. Of course, next week, 200 miles at Michigan. How are you feeling heading back to one of the bigger tracks?
I don't remember the last time I raced Michigan in any car. I think I could do pretty decent, but currently I'm just glad that I have a little bit of a points cushion in the championship. So if I don't have a good finish, it won't send me flying down the ranks.
Yeah, certainly seems like a heck of a points lead you have. Of course, the draft weeks will shake that up a little bit, but right now it's somewhere in the 80s. So I think you've got a little bit of breathing room to play with next week.
Yeah, I certainly can't complain with that.
Of course, for now though, gotta let you get your rest. I know y'all got like school and real life stuff outside of iRacing to deal with. So for now, the microphone is all yours, Mr. Hess. Who do you want to thank for making everything happen?
I want to thank you for putting on the broadcast. Not a lot of leagues have broadcasts, so it's great that this league can have one. Jason, Johnny, everyone else for putting on this race. Without them, I wouldn't be in this broadcast booth. I want to thank Everfrost. I want to thank Team Watson Racing. Great group of guys over there. I want to thank Mike and Brian and everyone else in the field for racing me clean despite that little incident that me and Brian had. And I want to thank my brother Christian for giving me something to wake up towards in the morning, and St. Mary's County Public School System to allow me to do what I love.
Good deal. Well, thank you for coming out. Congratulations on the podium finish here tonight. And I wish you good luck at Michigan next week.
Yep, I'll see you around.
You heard here first, race fans. Your top three finishers here tonight: Brian Zabelski, Mike Young, and Mr. Garrett Hess. But of course, those three drivers weren't the only three cars out here in the field here this evening. Let's see how everyone else has shaken things off here tonight. Following your top three podium finishers here this evening, Mr. Jason Gardner in the number 93. Maybe that grand strategy of his we just talked about didn't really work out the way he was hoping for, but still manages to walk away with a top 5 finish. He's going to bring it home back in position number 4. Fifth place going to go back to that rookie driver in his debut run, walking away with the top 5 here tonight. That's going to be the 66 of Matt Sisler. Sixth place going to go back to the 78 of Derek Murphy, followed by the CZ Robotics entry of Corey Logan back in 7th. With Garrett Streets in the 15 for the SM Racing Products crew, unfortunately bring it home at the tail end of the field with a blown motor 40 laps in. That said, race fans, that's just about all we've got here from the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. Heck of a race here this evening for the league's inaugural visit here. Next week, heading to Michigan for a full-length ARCA event. 200 miles is the distance next week. It's going to be a heck of a show, and all these drivers are going to be in for a little bit of an endurance event. For now, though, thank you all for tuning in, and have a good